Hello everyone, this is Athar Mahmood and I welcome you on this third day of Practice to Pass session for March 2022. Well, last day we discussed control systems. Now we discuss some sales systems and purchase systems, and we discussed different sorts of requirements that are normally asked by the examiner at this level. So we evaluated how to write answer when examiner asked to write test of controls. Then after that, we also discussed that how to format the answer if examiner asks you to present control deficiencies, recommendation, and test of controls. So I'm hopeful that you would have understood the style and the methodology that should be followed by the student to score good marks in that area. Now today, we are going to focus on audit procedures. Now audit procedures is the third most important area in the long questions of AA format. Normally 20 to 25 marks question is secured by this area, and audit procedures are not only they are tricky, they are complex, but they are also difficult to memorize for the students at this stage, especially in context to this fact that students are, or most of the students have no audit experience, and also noticing the fact that the students at this level have never studied audit before. So this is the first paper at ACC level, and examiner asks you or demand you to give audit procedures for certain levels of issues that are identified in the question. Now, this area is a bit tricky, and there is a background ISA relevant to these procedures, and this ISA is ISA 500, the audit evidence. The basics of the audit procedures is ISA 500, the audit evidence, where you would have studied in your resources, where they are Kaplan or they are DVB resources, you would have studied that according to ISA 500, auditor must obtain sufficient and appropriate evidence to draw conclusion on the financial statements. So the question here is, how auditor is going to get sufficient and appropriate evidence? You would have discussed that sufficient and appropriate evidence is obtained through procedures. Now there are certain sets of procedures like inquiry, inspection, review, recalculation, external confirmation. There is like analytical procedures, there is comparison, there is circularization report. So all these important procedures are applied on different heads of the financial statements like assets, liabilities, revenue, and the expenses. And the purpose of applying these procedures on these different various heads is to obtain sufficient and appropriate evidence. Now the activity of obtaining sufficient and appropriate evidence is a tricky. It is not as simple as one should consider it. This is not a course of listing some of the important facts from accounting standard. There is a psyche behind it. There is a procedure behind it. You need to follow some formats, or the alternative solution to that is you can memorize these procedures. These are the two ways through which you can get maximum marks at AA level. Now, how to have the conceptual knowledge of procedures? The alternative approach to that is memorization. Now let's start with how to get conceptualization of these audit procedures. You can see there are certain heads like bank and cash, non-current liabilities, non-current assets, intangible non-current assets, inventory, receivables, prepayments, then payables and accruals, provision and contingencies, accounting estimates, and fair value. All these heads are related to the statement of financial position. The rest of the heads like payroll, revenue, purchases, and other expenses, these heads are related to income statement or profit and loss. So these are the normal heads that are usually asked by the examiner, and he can ask you in question number 3 in the long questions to write different sorts of procedures on different heads. So he will ask you to list down some of the detailed procedures. Now, if you want to, first of all, understand how to write procedures by your own concept, this is your first target, that you should understand the concept of every head in the financial statement and the assertions behind it. You should be able to identify the relevant assertions. Assertions are very important. Assertions are the key to identify the relevant procedures. So if you want to, or any of you don't want to memorize procedures, then what he should do? He should actually focus on the assertions model. Now, what is assertion model? Now, there are certain assertions for balance sheet items, and there are certain assertions for income statement items. Like for balance sheet heads, there is existence, then there is rights and obligations, then completeness, then valuation and accuracy and allocation, extra classification, and in the end, presentation. So these are some of the assertions that you should memorize, and you should be able to identify the difference between them. So this is very important. Now, how you are going to conceptually understand the procedures of different heads like bank and cash. Now, if you go through bank and cash, you can see that the valuation and accuracy is basically the application of accounting standard. Now, as far as cash and bank is relevant, the valuation and accuracy assertion is not that much important because there is no relevant accounting standard to bank and cash like R&D. If there is a risk of research cost being capitalized, or if there is a risk that development cost has been capitalized without fulfilling the criteria, if this is the risk, then this risk comes from the accounting standard, that is IS 38. And IS 38, any research and development cost must be valued according to IS 38. So the most important assertion when you are dealing in R&D is valuation and accuracy assertion. But in case of bank and cash, valuation and accuracy assertion is not that important. The most important assertion is the existence, and the completeness. So how we are going to deal it? First of all, you should be able to identify the relevant assertion for backend cache, and then you are going to focus on the source of evidence that are available. You can see bank statements are third-party statements. This is a reliable evidence. Cash book is an internal evidence. It could be misleading. Bank reconciliation is performed by the organization, and this is a very important stage and step. And most of the audit procedures you would see that they would relate with the bank reconciliation. And bank confirmation letter is sent to different sorts of banks to confirm the existence and completeness and rights and obligation assertion. So you could see most of the procedures when you are dealing with bank and cash, from this procedure to that one. These generic procedures that are also provided in your resources, in your Kaplan and BBB books, they are also written out there. So half of the procedures are from bank reconciliation statement. You can see they are going to first of all tally the opening balance as per cash book. Then they are going to tally the balance per bank statement. Then they are going to confirm the outstanding lodgements. Then they are going to confirm unpresented checks. So you can see that there is a pattern followed in writing the procedures, and this pattern is very much straightforward. So if you imagine for a moment the bank reconciliation statement in your mind, and if you start from the first line, you can write and tally line by line and come after that down in the bank reconciliation statement, and you can write procedure and after that other procedure and then other procedure. So it is easy to write procedures if you have bank reconciliation pro forma in your mind. So starting from that pro forma, you can easily write 3 to 4 or 5 procedures from it. The rest of procedures are easy. You can send bank confirmation letter, and you can obtain breakup to ensure arithmetical accuracy. As far as petty cash is concerned, it is counted at year end. So all these procedures are done for bank and cash. Now this is a conceptual way of understanding the audit procedures. You cannot memorize these procedures without concept. This is very important. If you have no concept why these procedures have been there, why they are applied, what are assertions, why they are needed, then you cannot answer the tricky questions of examiner under exam conditions. So it is very important to identify what is the reason and why these procedures are used. You can see the starting word trace. Sometimes you can use trace, sometimes you can use reconcile, sometimes you have alternative words like inspect, review, confirm, ensure. So all these words can be used. These are alternative words. So you should be able to understand the conceptual framework. In my opinion, if you want to memorize bank and cash procedures, first of all, you need to have the command on these 4 important evidences, that you are going to use bank reconciliation, then bank confirmation letter, then you would tally many of the items written in bank reconciliation with the cash book. Sometimes you are going to tally with pre-year end cash book, then you are going to tally it with post-year cash book, and bank statement is more reliable evidence than cash book. Why? Because this is a third-party evidence. So if you focus on the bank reconciliation pro forma and 2 to 3 generic procedures and a procedure for petty cash, so you can easily memorize the procedures required to present or disclose at your examination level. So bank and cash procedures should be memorized like that. Now if we go back to non-current liabilities, as far as non-current liabilities are concerned, what risk you had identified when you were dealing with a loan that is recently taken by the organization, like 10 millions loan that is taken by the organization. So what would be the risk that you would identify and explain to examiner? So you would say that this non-current liability could not have been properly split between non-current liability and current liability, and there is a risk that finance cost is wrongly charged. So these are the risks. So this means that whenever you are focusing on an area, first of all, you are going to go for the assertion, then you are going to think of the related risk, and third thing is the documents, the documents in that head. So for the non-current liability or the loan that company has taken, the risk was the split between non-current liability and current liability. The second risk was calculation of finance cost. Another risk that you would have identified in different various questions was the covenants. If the covenants are breached, in case of breach of covenant, going concern issues may raise. At least the non-current liability would be converted into current liability if covenants are breached for that loan. Now, these were three risks that were identified. Now, what are the relevant documents? Now, if we go back to non-current liability section, you can see whenever there is a loan arrangement between organization and the bank, there will be some loan agreement. This agreement is a third party, is a stamp paper agreement on a legal paper, and that is valid and very reliable source. So loan agreement is the main agreement in which terms, conditions, covenants, interest rate would be written, and we would use these data to calculate finance cost, interest rate, payable, accruals related to finance cost, and the split between non-current liability and current liability. And when we pay payments as an interest or principal amount is paid or the loan amount is received, it is also written in cash book, or the third party reliable statement is bank statement for that. And bank confirmation letters from bank to confirm whether the loan is taken or not. So these are the documents that would be used at this level. So what should be done by students? They should write or memorize these documents. Students must be aware that there is some documents like loan agreement, bank statement, and cash register. So cash register, loan agreement, and bank statement. So balance sheet assertions, related risk, and related documents. If you have memorized these things, if you are aware of the related documents, related risk, and related assertions, then it will be very easy to write the procedures. Like if you start with existence, if you want to confirm whether this loan exists or not. Existence means that if loan is recorded in financial statements, it should have been physically received. How you can confirm the existence? You can check the bank statement, whether it is received in your bank account or not. So this is easy. Then if you want to confirm rights and obligation, whether this loan is on the name of company or not, you can see loan agreement. You can check loan agreement to confirm rights and obligation. So you can start with the word inspect the loan agreement to confirm rights and obligation. If you want to confirm completeness, completeness means the loans that you have taken from different banks, they should, or all the loans that are taken from different banks should be recorded in the financial statements. This is called completion assertion. So what you can do, You can tally bank statement and you can tally financial statements to confirm that all loans are recorded in the financial statements or not. If you want to confirm valuation and accuracy, then what you can do, loan agreement is an easy document for you. Through loan agreement, you can calculate interest, you can be aware or you can know what are the terms and conditions, what is the maturity date, whether you should pay in accruals or prepayments. So these important terms and conditions give you information regarding accrual calculation, split between non-current liability and current liability, calculation of finance cost, all these can be confirmed. So recalculation of non-current liability and current liability to see whether split is properly apportioned or not through loan agreement. So this can be the procedure. Calculation of finance cost, the procedure can start from recalculation of finance cost. Covenants, we would inspect loan agreement to see covenants. Now this is a conceptual way to learn procedures. If you imagine this data against your eyes, whenever examiner is asking to write some of the procedures for a specific head, just think of the related assertions, related risk, and related documents. And if you merge them, and if you continue writing procedures with assertion by assertion, starting with existence, starting with rights and obligation, then completeness, then valuation and accuracy, then classification, whether they are properly classified or not, and presentation according to, you can see, according to IFRS 9. So all these things, all these assertions can be confirmed through these documents. And remember to write procedures, especially on these related risks. So you can easily write relevant procedures. So if we go back to the non-current liability procedure, you can see obtain a breakdown to confirm arithmetical accuracy. Outstanding bank confirmation letter will be used. Then inspect confirmation letter if for any loans listed that have not been included in financial statement. This procedure is for completeness assertion. So this is important to memorize the relevant assertion as well, because sometimes examiner may ask you to write procedures for only one assertion, like completeness assertion, or examiner can ask you to write the procedures for just valuation assertion. You should be aware that these 3 or 4 procedures are relevant to completeness assertion or existence assertion or valuation assertion. So you should have good grip on these procedures. This is the area where student can get full marks, even if examiner has asked you to write procedures for 4 marks, you can get whole 4 marks easily. So this is the easy area, but to get these marks, there is a difficult process involved. And what is that process? The process is to not just memorize, it is to conceptually memorize. First, to understand conceptually why these procedures applied, what are the relevant assertions, then you are going to memorize it, and then you are going to practice it under different sort of questions. You can see bank confirmation letter for detail of any security over assets or terms and conditions. Then you can see interest rate and split of loan. So this is not compulsory that you must follow these same wordings. This is not compulsory or mandatory. You can use your own words, but the starting word is important, whether you use inspect or not, or review or ensure, and the relevant assertions. These assertions should be memorized, like recalculate to confirm allocation, classification, and presentation. So these 3 assertions are managed through this one procedure, that is to recalculate split between current and non-current liabilities. Now, once again, you can see inspect the loan agreement for restrictive covenants as we discussed, and inspect cash book for loan repayments made, and for the related finance cost, recalculate interest rate and any charge in accruals. You can see all these procedures are covering basically this table. They are covering all the assertions. They are focusing, you can see split between and these and covenants. They are specifically discussed in different. So you can see these procedures clearly. All these procedures are relevant to what we have discussed in that table: restrictive covenants, cash book, finance cost, calculation of finance cost, interest rate. You can see disclosures split between loan, current and non-current. So all these words are used. This is not a matter of just memorizing or using rata system. This is not like that. You should have basic concept behind it so that you can implicate these things in your exam. So this is how you are going to do that. Now let's move to next head, like non-current assets. So once again, non-current assets, you can see non-current assets have same assertions, but they have different risk and different documents. So what was the risk for IS 16 purchase? That this is not a capital expenditure item. This was the risk. What could be other risk involved in IS 16? That depreciation is not properly calculated. They are not mentioned in asset register. Revaluation is not done according to IS 16 because they are subjective. So these are the risks involved at this level. What are the related documents? So these are the documents. Non-current asset registers are there. When you have purchased an asset, there is a purchase invoice involved. When you have sold some assets, there is a sales invoice involved. Whenever you have paid for an asset, bank statement should be used. If you want to confirm the existence of an asset physically, then you need to go to see physically that asset, whether that asset is present or not. Ownership documents are there to confirm the rights and obligation. Depreciation policy and rates are important in terms of recalculation of depreciation and to see whether they are properly charged or not. So there is no that kind of shortcut available where you can just memorize 3 to 4 things without any concept and you can get maximum marks. So if you want to pass the paper, you have to sit down, you have to go head by head. You need to understand that what are the procedures and how they are formulated, like intangible assets. Same is the case with the inventory. Now, inventory's procedures are a bit tricky. Why? Because there is an inventory count involved. So at the year end, what auditors do, they go to client premises and they count the inventory. They are present there, they are involved in this inventory count. So there are certain sets of procedures that would be applied before inventory count, during inventory count, and after inventory count. Now there are three types of inventory counts or substantive procedures at the day of inventory count. These are some of the before inventory count procedures you can see. Then these are the during inventory count. So during the count, there are some test of controls that are asked by examiner many times. You should be aware of these test of controls, like there should be team of 2 people who are performing the count. Then every inventory section should be tagged so that they are not double counted. Damaged or obsolete inventory should be separately identified. So these are ready-made procedures. These are easy to learn, but there is a logic behind it because this is a sort of control system check. Now you can see inspect the count sheet to ensure that they have completed in pen rather than pencil. So this is important that if someone from warehouse or any person who was involved in the count take has written something or quantity with the pencil, he might change it afterwards. So we can see that these are some of the test of controls that should be applied during the inventory count. And the most important and very crucial procedures during the inventory count are these ones, like record detail of last deliveries prior to the year end, because these GRNs and means goods received notes and goods dispatch notes. These documents are very relevant here to confirm the cut-off assertion of income statement heads. So what auditor do at year end, the last goods received and the last goods delivered are checked, are tagged that these are the last ones. After that, any purchase that is received or any goods that are sold to customers will be considered the sale or purchase of next day. And the next day means that these are the sales and purchases of the next year. So cutoff are very important. Now at final audit, final stage means when stock take has ended and after 2 or 3 months, auditor has come for the final audit. Now these are the procedures that should be applied. The most important is to confirm that whether same inventory is written in inventory system or not, that were mutually agreed at the test of control or counting level. So now reviewing WIP and also confirming the obsoleteness of inventory and IS2 rule, whether they are recorded at lower of cost or NRV or not. So these are two important areas. So this is a long list of procedures, especially in inventory section. Yes, but they are frequently asked by examiner. Frequently asked by examiner, and we will see just after some time. We will see in some questions that we are going to tackle today that inventory is regularly asked by the examiner. Now, the next head is receivable. Receivable once again has these sets of evidence. These are the documents that you should understand and you should memorize. Then you should be aware of the relevant assertions. These are the assertions. And what is the relevant risk at audit risk level? In receivable head, you would know that the main risk was that receivable days or payable days issue. Receivable days, if the receivable days are increasing, this means that company is not able to get money back on time. So this means that company could face cash flow problems. Also, if receivable figure is increasing, then there is a risk that bad debts have not been properly identified and they are not covered. So what could be done to identify these risks? Yes, correspondence can be checked, circularization should be sent, post-year and bank statement should be checked whether these receivables which are claimed by the organization that they will pay, whether after year end they have paid or not. And what is the policy for doubtful receivables? So these are the important areas. Age receivable listing is a very important document to identify slow moving receivable heads. So substantive procedures, all these substantive procedures you can see what we are doing. First of all, we are confirming the existence of the receivable. So if there is a GDN, if the documents shows that some of the products are sold, then the receivable existence is confirmed. Then we are going to confirm it with the bank statement. We are going to tell it with the relevant control account. Then we are going to send circularization report on a sample basis to some of the receivables to confirm whether they agree on the amount or not. It will also confirm existence, and it is also going to confirm rights and obligations. Age receivable report is very important. Age receivable report to identify any slow moving balances and also involve discussion with the credit control manager to assess whether an allowance or write down is necessary or not. So this is the main issue. You can see once again slow moving and age based analysis. Any balance that is a receivable balance but that shows credit balance is also suspicious. And yes, calculation of receivable days and payable days. So now the important thing is not that you just memorize all these 12 or 15 procedures, but the most important procedures are the one that are related to GDN, that are related to circularization report, that are important relevant to slow moving balances like that, like this one, and receivable collection period. So these 6-7 procedures are most important procedures. They are directly relevant to the assertions of receivables, and some of these documents are very important in context to the receivables. So you must have good knowledge of these documents and these procedures and their assertions. Then you can see like that in prepayment section. Then payables are the copy paste, the difference of the receivables, the difference being not GTL, but we are using here GRN. And we are also going to calculate payable and accrual days. So this is how you are going to do. Now, as far as provisions and contingencies are concerned, let's think of the relevant audit risk. When the examiner used to ask that there is a case on the organization and we may have to pay 3 million, or we have redundant some of the employees and we may need to pay 2.5 million to these redundant employees. So what was the risk that you identified at that level? The risk was that according to IS 37, provision, either provision is not recorded, or if provision is recorded, then it is not recorded at the reasonable amount. So if it is probable and the amount is measurable, then provision should have been recorded. In case of contingent liability, the disclosure should be set by the management in the financial statements. These are the requirements and these are the risks because management may have missed any of them or all of them. What are the related documents? Yes, whenever we are dealing with a case, there will be some legal correspondence. There will be minutes of the meeting, very important document where normally directors and shareholders discuss about any litigation action that is started against the company by an employee or by any supplier or customer. So these are the documents that are important. Pressure statements, disclosures are important to confirm presentation. So how you are going to write the procedures? Same way. You need to see the board minutes. You need to calculate the amount. You need to confirm from bank statement after year end, means post year end bank statement. There may be a chance that this case may have been settled after the year end date. So yes, once again, you need to do that. So that is why I'm focusing on giving you some basic understanding of the logic of the procedures. Because if you have awareness and if you are using your muscle memory and your own logic to understand these substantive procedures, they are easy. And if you have memorized them, it will save your time under exam conditions. But if you think that you are going to think of the relevant procedures under exam conditions, it is absolutely impossible. Because if you are going to think over there that what could be the documents, what are the assertions, now I am going to try to write down procedures for the first time. It is not going to happen, and it is going to cost you a lot of time, and you can miss either complete audit risk question or you can miss some of the important OTs. Consequently, you can fail. So the main point that I am focusing today is that memorize the procedures, write them down again and again and continuously for the coming 24 days. But do not memorize just without concept. First of all, try to understand the risk involved, the assertions involved, and the related documents involved. These are the three things that are important and through which you can easily understand and memorize the procedures. You can see, inspect the financial statement for provision and contingent liability disclosures and obtain written representation. This is a requirement according to ISA 580 that wherever there is an estimate, there is a judgment involved, the auditor can take written representation in case if he is not clear on it. So written representation is not as that reliable as the post-year bank statement. This is more reliable evidence to confirm the amount, but yes, we will accept these types of procedures. Now this is how you are going to understand the procedures. Same is the case with contingent assets. Now as far as accounting estimates are concerned, they are always tricky. They are dealt under ISA 540. This is wrongly written as IS. This is ISA 540, and you know that estimates are used in various accounting standards like scrap value of assets, NRV in IS2, provision in IS 37, impairment value in IS 36, and also financial instrument in IFRS 9. So all these values are estimates wherever there are revaluation or the fair value. The term fair value is used by accounting standard. Accounting estimates can be used. So these are the procedures that can be memorized. But first of all, you should understand share capital is not that important. Dividend, you can just go through these things. Directors' emoluments are sometimes asked by the examiner to give you a sort of surprise. Now, payroll are also sometimes asked by the examiner, like what are the substantive procedures. So what should you do? You should upload the payroll control system first. You should be aware of the time in and time out mechanism, then the standing data, then there are some important points like the payment mechanism, then there is a payroll control account, all these documents, hourly rate, timesheets, payroll is paid through bank statement or cash book. So all these are important things. Lots of recalculation will be involved if you go through one by one. As payroll head is an income statement or profit and loss head, so assertions are now different. Now assertions are occurrence, completeness, accuracy, cutoff, classification, and presentation. So occurrence means that whenever a sample of payroll calculation has been made and it is shown that salaries and wages are paid to Mr. A. So this is recorded. They should have been paid to Mr. A. So we can confirm this by the signatures of Mr. A, or we can confirm through the payment on the bank statement. Same is the case with completeness. If we have paid to 300 employees, salaries and wages expense should be of 300 employees. It should not be less than 300. If it is less than 300, then this means that we have missed some of the important employees and there is a completeness assertions error. Then accuracy cutoff. For accuracy, we are going to go into payroll. We are going to see joiners and leavers. We are going to calculate statutory deductions. We are going to recalculate gross and net payment. We are going to cast monthly payroll listing. So all these are important relevant points for accuracy and the cutoff. You can see for salaries, agree the total net pay per payroll record. This is also important relevant procedure. And you can also see that there are some analytical procedures that are used. Now these analytical procedures are very important in terms of that this time this is an expense head, and for expense head it is always very feasible for students to calculate percentage change as compared to previous year or this year. So these analytical procedures can be used in payroll as well. If there is a case of revenue, this head, the revenue head, this is almost opposite to receivable account. This is a part of directional testing. This is a part of directional testing where you are debiting receivable and you are crediting sales. So many of the receivable figures would have confirmed when you have applied or would have applied some of the procedures on receivable account. As far as revenue count is concerned, what we should do, we should confirm that this occurrence of the revenue. So how can we confirm these things? We can go through GDN, we can confirm it through the calculation of the discount and sales tax. This is the accuracy confirmation. Selecting a sample of customer order, agree those to dispatch notes and sale invoice through including the sales day book. So this is a sort of completeness session. All these things can be confirmed. Mostly you can see there are only 3 to 4 procedures. The rest of the procedures are analytical procedures that are applied at revenue stage. So this is how you are going to work. Then there are some purchases area which you can see these are the purchases, cost of goods sold, the admin expenses, the operating expenses that are used. So for all those important items, these procedures can be used, and these are the important documents that you should be aware of. Now I am hopeful that you would now understand the reason why it is important to conceptually understand the procedures, and before memorizing it, concept is very important. Now let's move towards a question to see how to tackle audit procedure questions. Now from the handouts, I have selected this question, Andromeda Industries. There are two issues given, inventory count and R&D. So you can read the data and you can see there are some requirements. Requirement A, B, C. This question is a 20 marks question. Normally from this area, examiner can set 20 to 25 marks question. It can vary though. You can see requirement A, explain four factors which influence the reliability of audit evidence. This is a straightforward question from ISA 500, the audit evidence. This is a knowledge-based question. These 4 marks are very easy, but due to the negligence of students, because they don't want to focus or they don't want to give proper time to bookish knowledge, they can't get these 4 marks. They just try to write whatever comes in their mind. So that is why they can lose these 4 marks. So it is important to understand the knowledge-based questions, to memorize some knowledge-based questions. We are going to see a file tomorrow. The last day of this session, we will see that the most important questions that are important to understand and important to memorize. These key areas should be memorized. The list of these questions along with the answers, I will share this list with you. Now the requirement B is describe audit procedures you would perform during the audit of Andromeda Industries. Now, what procedures have been asked before and during the inventory count? First of all, the examiner asks us to write before and during inventory count procedures for 8 marks. So you can see 4 marks for before inventory count and 4 marks for during inventory count. Now there is a data written. Andromeda's raw materials and finished goods are stored at 12 inventory warehouse across the country. Which of these warehouses are expected to contain material levels? It is expected that there will be no significant WIP. So this is a hint by examiner that you don't need to write the procedures for WIP. You just can focus on the 12 warehouses where inventory is stored. Each count will be supervised by a member of Andromeda's internal audit department. Now this was an important thing, and you would be aware that there is a test of control that no one from warehouse department should be involved in inventory counting, because he would be biased and he would try to write the exact amount that is stored at the warehouse. And the count will take place on 31st December when all movements of goods in and out of the warehouse will cease. This is once again, this is one of the important test of control that during inventory count, no movement in and out are allowed. So this is the data, but you can see in this question where he is asking describe audit procedures you would perform during the audit of Andromeda Industries before and during the inventory count. Now data is very straightforward. There is nothing special in it. Just these things that WIP's procedures are not required. and there are 12 warehouses. Now, how can we apply the procedures? Now, this is important to understand that the procedures you memorized from this file or from Kaplan BB books are very important. If you are not aware of these procedures or you have not memorized these procedures, you will be clueless in the exams. You cannot write the correct procedures. You should be directly pointing towards the right procedures. Now, these are the procedures that are before the inventory count. Before the inventory count. And examiner has asked you to write the procedure for before the inventory count for 4 marks. So, these are the procedures. Now you can see whenever you are going to write these procedures. Now contact the client to obtain details of date, time and locations of the inventory counts. As you are aware that there are 12 warehouses, what you are going to change, you are going to amend and write 12 warehouses in this procedures. Contact the client to obtain the details of date, time and locations for inventory count of the 12 warehouses. This will be a complete procedure. Nothing special. They will be copy pasted. They can be written like obtain a list of locations. Now what you will do, obtain a list of 12 warehouse locations where inventory is stored and select which locations will be attended by the audit firm. If not, all locations will be visited. So what you are going to do, if you have a list of generic procedures, you can apply it under the scenario. But if you are not aware of the generic procedures, you cannot write by your own concept under examination. Concept is important. You should understand the concept first, the related documents, the related procedures, and the related assertions with the related risk. Then you are going to memorize them. So writing the procedures for before the inventory count is easy. If you see the question, there is no specialty and there is no such thing that is that is asked by the examiner. So these are generic procedures that are asked before, and then the examiner has asked you to produce during the inventory count procedures. Once again, straightforward question. These are the during the count test of controls. During the count test of controls. So these are the procedures asked by you from here to this one. After that, these are substantive procedures. All the procedures above this heading are test of controls during the count. Now you are going to write these ones. Now, a student might think that if the data shows that each count is supervised by a member of internal audit department, that is a claim by the management that each count will be supervised by a member of Andromeda's internal audit department. Now, if they are saying that internal audit department is going to handle these inventory counts, then why we need to write down this test of control? Inquire of the accounting staff which department they work in to ensure they are not warehouse staff. Now, whether you guys would write this procedure or not, because under exam condition, they are claiming that each count will be supervised by a member of Andromeda's internal department. Means he's not from warehouse. So now whether you are going to apply this procedure or not, yes, you are going to apply this procedure. Why? Because this is a claim by the organization that we are not going to use any member of the warehouse department, rather we are going to use internal audit department. This is their claim. We cannot rely on their statements. We are going to apply our own procedures. We are going to observe that. We are going to confirm that. So this is their claim. So we must acquire evidence by applying this procedure to confirm, to select on a sample basis among, like if there are 10 persons, we are going to ask this question to 4 of them regarding from which department you are. So if they tell us that I am from the warehouse department, then this will be a breach of these control system. And if they tell us that I'm from internal audit department, then we can say that they are following the control system. So this is how we are going to write. These are straightforward procedures, nothing special about. So generic procedures should be memorized with concept. Generic procedures should be memorized with concept. This is very important and ultimate. You can see according to the marking scheme, procedures for before the count and during the count. You can see observed procedures for movements of inventory during the count. Although data showed that there will be no movement of goods in and out of the warehouse, that was told in the data, but their claim is not reliable for us. We are going to observe it, we are going to check it. So that is why we are going to apply this procedure and to confirm that there is no movement during the inventory count. Confirm procedures for damaged goods, test counts inventory sheets, inventory count instructions, take note of last GDN and GDR or GDN, discuss internal supervisor how they have estimated the raw material quantities. So all these are the procedures that are relevant. But the important thing is up to 1 mark per well described procedures, overall maximum of 8 marks. So 1 mark per well described procedures. Normally, student asks the question that how many procedures should be written for 4 marks? Now the answer to that is that you can write 4 procedures, but yes, you can get 4 marks by writing 4 procedures, but they should be well described procedures. If they are not well described procedures, you cannot get complete marks. You cannot get full marks. What is the meaning of well described procedure? So well described procedures means like this procedure is a well described procedure. Cast the list to ensure arithmetical accuracy. Sometimes students will write only this. Cast the list to ensure arithmetical accuracy. Now this is not a well described procedure and you cannot earn full 1 marks. You should write that and agree totals to financial statement disclosures. Unless you have reconciled this listing total to the financial statement disclosure, it is not confirming completeness and classification. So if you want to write a well described procedure, then you can write 4 most important procedures. So which one of the procedure you will write? If the examiner is asking to write 4 procedures, which 4 of the procedures you prefer to write? Now this is the next question, but before going to that question, the important thing is that you should memorize a well described procedure. If you have not memorized well described procedure, what is the meaning of well described procedure? Now well described procedure starts with correct verb like cast, tally, confirm, ensure, inspect, review, recalculate. All these are the correct verbs. So you should use correct verb. For example, if you want to do something with minutes of the meeting, then observation is not a correct verb. Recalculation is not a correct verb. Inspect or review are the correct verbs to start with. So start with the correct verb. Use relevant document. Always use relevant document. You should be aware of, as I have discussed, that memorize the relevant documents. So think of a relevant document. A relevant document may be a correspondence from lawyer or minutes of the meeting, or it can be the bank statement, pre-year bank statement or post-year bank statement or bank circularization report or loan agreement, anything. This document could be anything. So how you are going to confirm that you are writing the right document? So the only way is that you should memorize the relevant documents. Now, these are the days when you have time to memorize the concept of procedures. The relevant documents, you can see in every area. I have noted some of the important evidences. For like intangible current assets, these are the important areas. Like project plan is important, bank statement and time sheets are important, purchase invoices are important. These are the documents. So if you want to know how to write well described procedure, to use relevant document. Also memorize the relevant assertion. So students often ask this question, whether we need to memorize only the procedure or the relevant assertion. So you can see the assertion are important. The assertions are important with context to different multiple requirements that are asked. The assertions are also very important because there are multiple types of the questions from procedures, and sometimes examiner may ask to write only existence procedures for the receivable head. So you should memorize the assertion. And also the last thing to understand well described procedure is that there is sometimes second verb. So if there is a second verb in a procedure, unless you write this second verb, this procedure will not be considered as a well described procedure. So what is the meaning of second verb? How to memorize the relevant assertion and use relevant document and start correct verb? To apply this as an example, you can see if this is a non-current, you can see this one. Now this is the procedure. The start verb is inspect. The document are budgets and forecast. The assertion is valuation, and the second verb is compare. So first of all, you are going to inspect the forecast, and if you have further questions and if there is unusual trend and if there is something suspicious, then you would compare it with something that is moral. So this is a complete procedure and well described procedure. If you have written only this is not a well described procedure and you cannot get complete 1 marks. So if you have memorized the procedures like this, you have partially memorized these procedures, then you should write 8 procedures for 4 marks. If you are going to memorize partial procedures, if you are going to verbally or orally memorize the procedures, then you are going to produce partial procedures under exam condition. Then sorry to say, you should memorize maximum procedures because you are going to get half marks. So in that case, if you are not aware of good procedures, well described procedures, then you should write 8 procedures to get 4 marks. But if you are able to memorize full-fledged procedures, you have done effort on it, you have memorized these procedures by writing again and again, day by day for coming 24 days, then these procedures will be under your fingertips. You can easily write. These procedures would be easy for you. You can write these procedures through your muscle memory. Then and then is the case that you can write 4 procedures for 4 marks. And then you will get 4 out of 4. But if you don't like memorizing, this is not the memorizing like that. I have told you, first of all, understand the concept behind it. How can you understand the concept? These 3 things: assertions, related risk, and related documents. Then you can write the procedures with your own skill. This is just a matter of some time when you are going to apply these procedures. This is not that difficult. But yes, they are lengthy. They take time. They are not easy. This activity or these things cannot be memorized within 2, 3, 4 days. It can take 10 to 15 days. So give 2 to 3 hours daily to procedures. Daily memorize some procedures, write it on the paper, reconcile it with the answer, then write again and again for coming 24 days. Then and only then you will be able to produce good procedures under severe exam conditions. You know how much pressure is exerted by the examiner. There is a time management pressure. There is a new requirement pressure under exam. So under these pressures, only those students will survive who have strong concept of procedures and those who have memorized the procedures by writing again and again. Only those procedures are going to survive. So only rata system will not help you. Concept is very, very important. Concept is very important. So this is what the examiner meant by up to 1 mark per well-described procedures and overall maximum of 8 marks. So you cannot get more than 8 marks and you can get up to 8 marks if you are going to write like that. So this is how this question is going to work. So if you have any questions regarding what we have discussed till now, like the audit procedures for different heads, or if you have question regarding how to deal with this during inventory and after inventory procedures and how to memorize, you can ask any question now. We are in a question answering session for some time so that you can understand what are the questions that you are thinking of. So to increase two-way communication, well, I am using this question answering session twice during this session. So whatever we have done, we have seen different sorts of procedures. We have seen different documents and assertions for different procedures and different heads. And we were going through this question Andromeda Industries. So, and we just saw how to write the procedures, and we just discussed how many procedures should be written for 4 marks or 8 marks. So if you have any question, just come to chat box or questions session area and write your concern question. I'm going to answer it. Okay, Prasad, you are still waiting for handouts. Yes, Adil, you are right. Correspondence should also be checked, especially in case of the question of Adil is whether regarding the long-term loans procedure, should we also include latest correspondence file with bank in order to check any violation of loan covenants. Now, if you want to confirm the violation of loan covenants, you need to read the loan covenants first, Adil. Then you are going to recalculate these covenants and you will tally it with the financial statement to see whether these covenants are breached or violated by the organization or not. Okay, so this is how you are going to confirm. As far as your point is concerned, yes, that is good. That is a valid point in context to this, that whether bank is aware of this loan breach, covenant breach or not. So if they are aware of that and they have sent a letter claiming or demanding the repayment of loan immediately, then this can be checked through correspondence letter. Yes, you are right. And this is an important uh, piece of evidence for the auditor. Yes, Kessler, what is your question? Maha, yes, you can get the recorded session along with the handouts. Yes, Agron, you can get handouts of first 2 days. Yes, they are available. WIP, there's a question from QH. WIP can use during the count procedures. WIP can use during the count procedures. Okay. So during the count means that we may be during the inventory count, there are certain or there may be certain assets that are not completed yet. The manufacturing plant, they are incomplete, they are partially complete. So how we are going to, so this is once again a matter of estimate and subjectivity. So for this purpose, during the inventory count, we may hire an expert. This is a procedure that can be used to see whether the estimation of management is correct or not. So yes, WIP can be used. There is a question from Umar. So if the question states to write procedures and if we wrote procedures which relate to one assertion more than one time, will we get marks? Not at all, Umar. If the examiner is asking you to write all the procedures and he has not restricted the requirement towards the specific procedures, then you are going to write the procedures from various assertions. This is compulsory. If you are going to write the assertions from only one, sorry, if you are going to write the procedures from only one assertion, then it will not get you all the marks. So if there are 6 marks and there are 5 assertions, so approximately there will be 1 marks per assertion. And by writing all the procedures of one assertion, you can end up with 1 mark or 2 mark. So I would suggest kindly memorize basic procedures of all assertions. Okay, so there is another question from Ryan. Can we write multiple procedures for one assertion? Yes, Ryan, of course, you can write it for one assertion, and there are many examples in different Kaplan and VB resources where for one assertion the the concerned parties have, or the mentors have provided many or multiple procedures for that. Yes. So for, as we saw in the inventory section, that there were three procedures for, or receivable section, we saw three procedures for slow moving balances through age data analysis and analytical procedures and all these sorts. So yes, Ryan, you should try to memorize all the procedures, or at least the most important procedures for the relevant session. Yes, any other question? If you want to make, this is very important area. The discussion in which we are now is very important. Many of the students are confused regarding how to prepare audit procedures. Now it is the time to understand that you are left with only 25 or 24 to 25 days, and the only way out from this cubicle round is to just understand and have a concept of every head and try to memorize by writing again and again. And you should write a well described procedure so that you can produce it or reproduce it under exam conditions to examiner. So there is a question from Ibrahim. So when writing the procedures, there is the difficulty to write these relevant to scenario. So give some advice how we write according to scenario by giving example. Okay. So this is where you are going to apply your judgment. Now, let's say that the scenario in the scenario is talking about only the inventory of the, if we continue our inventory example, it would be better to do that, or we can switch to another area. So if the data is discussing an event where the accruals have not been charged, he is telling you that we have purchased some expenses, we have paid rent, and the accountant was on leave at the year end, so he have missed the accruals. So this means that overall generic procedures of purchases are important in context to that, but the most important thing is that you are going to focus on accrual procedures because accruals have been missed. So you need to adjust it, you need to change it. So you can do it if you have memorized generic procedures. So there may be a case that in data, half of the data relates to purchases and half of the data related to accruals. So what you are going to do, you are going to write half procedures for purchases and half procedures for accruals. So there is nothing special about implication, and you don't need to basically use other things. You can do it by, you can see, if we go back to that example, this one. So 12 warehouses across the country. Now when you are going to write this procedure, look, decide which of the 12 warehouses the audit team member will attend. Now this was a generic procedure where you were asked to write, to contact and obtain the list and to confirm which warehouses you should visit. Now what you should do, you know that in data 12 locations are mentioned, so you will write the word 12 warehouses. So this generic procedure will be converted into a specific procedure. Then review the prior year audit files to identify significant inventory issues from last year. Now you can see this is a generic procedure. This is copy pasted. There is nothing change according to the data. So this is how you are going to tackle. You can see all these procedures are generic. All these procedures are generic. Now, as far as your question is concerned, Ibrahim, We are going to tackle another question in second half. After the break, we are going to tackle that question, in which we will see how to improvise these generic procedures. In our this first half, we are focusing how to memorize and how to apply generic procedures in scenarios. In second half, after break, we are going to discuss how these generic procedures can be used or improvised in a question where data is important. So Ibrahim, stay with us for some more moments. After break, you would see some of the discussion on the improvisation or implication of the procedures. Yes, any other question regarding procedures, especially how to memorize it, or any misconception about the procedures, or any question related to assertions? Assertion is a very conceptual thing, you know. Many of the students are not aware of the assertions. That is why they cannot conceptually understand the procedure. So if you are not aware of this, kindly go for it and try to memorize it. Yes, Isha is asking how to memorize them. Okay, so if you want to memorize these procedures, the way is that you select 2 or 3 heads per day. Like you say, okay, bank, bank and cash and non-current liabilities. Bank and cash and non-current liabilities. Now these are the 2 heads I'm going to tackle them today. So these are my today's assignment. Now, first of all, go to that table. You are going to memorize. You should be aware of the relevant assertion. You would already have knowledge of the related risk, especially in non-current liabilities section. Just memorize the relevant documents. So if you have memorized these 3 things, then you would see that in bank and cash area, bank reconciliation statement, more than half of the procedures are related to bank reconciliation statement. So this is a trick through which you can easily understand the procedures. So what you can do after reading them and starting memorization verbally or orally, start writing bank and cash procedures. Then repeat the process for non-current liabilities as well, by doing the same things, by converting the assertions, by linking with the related risk, and by memorizing the documents. Just try to make procedures by yourself, starting with like existence. How I can confirm the existence? How can I confirm rights and obligations? How can I confirm the completeness? Think of a procedure in your mind, then tally it with the procedure written for completeness assertions in the resources. Tally with that and adjust according to that. The area that you have missed, adjust it. Try to memorize it and then write down on your paper. So whenever you write down, your brain automatically starts memorizing it. So on your first day, you are going to memorize like that bank and cash and non-current liabilities. Now for the next day, you are going to add 1 head, non-current assets, by repeating that process. And you will select, you are going to write all these 3 heads procedures on second day. And on third day, you are going to add intangible non-current asset, but you are going to write the procedures at the end of that third day. You are going to write all these procedures for the 4 heads from bank and cash to intangible non-current assets. So by doing this, every day you are going to add 1 new head, but after memorizing it, you should write or try to at least write all the heads on that day that from your first day, all the heads you have done, you have covered, you should write all the procedures. So what should happen on the last day, means after 15 days or at 15th day, you would be basically evaluating or assessing purchases, and you will try to write all the procedures. So if it is not possible, you can write half on 15th day and half other half on 16th. So by writing again and again, by thinking of them, by thinking of the accruals, by thinking of the assertions, by thinking of the relevant documents and relevant risk, you can understand, and after writing again and again, you will know that your brain is now onward, giving you hints on the assertions and the procedure that should be written. So this is a way to tackle the procedures. Is it necessary to memorize all of them? You should try to memorize them, but if you can't, just try to memorize the most important procedures from every head. At least half of the procedures among these lists should be memorized. Isha. So QH is asking a question, how about those with many warehouses? What is the good procedure? So if there are many warehouses and if the data doesn't mention anything about the quantity of warehouses, then you can use these generic procedures as well, like obtain the date, contact and location of the address and address of the warehouses, and confirm that which warehouse locations should be audited by this team. So in that case, if numbers are not mentioned QH, you can just simply produce or reproduce the generic option. So Umar is asking, sir, any advice on important heads to focus more on more for March attempt relating to procedures which you think as per trend can be asked? Yes, Umar, receivables are very important. Payables, receivable payables are very important. Revenue and purchases are very important. Non-current assets and tangible assets are very important. Non-current liabilities and bank and cash are very important. So these are some heads that are very important with context to a March attempt. But I would suggest that do not go for the selection, because procedure questions or procedures are examined normally in all these three questions: audit risk question, control system questions, and substantive procedure questions. So audit risk question may carry procedures question in form of option C. So you should see different mocks and different past papers, and you can see that at least 30 marks 30 marks paper is from procedure area. So this is a very crucial area. Procedures are very important. And I have seen the students who have failed, they have failed only due to procedures. So why I am repeating this thing again and again, I want to open your eyes. I want to consider your important opinions regarding this, that just go around the audit risk and now focus on procedures. Which financial reporting areas of FR paper are the key for this audit paper? Yes, Adil, I would suggest some important accounting standards from financial reporting like IS2, IS 16 is very important, IS 36, 37 and 38. These are very important areas, and IFRS 5 and IFRS 15. So these 7 accounting standards or 8 accounting standards are very important in context to double A, and you should also memorize procedures for these heads as well. So Ibrahim is asking a question that, uh, yes, QH, I will repeat the accounting standards again. Kindly note down. First of all, IAS 2. Actually, I can write it. IAS 2 16 36 37 38 IFRS 5 IFRS 50. You don't need to go in a lot of details of these accounting standards. Just have a basic knowledge of them. So you don't need to go extensively or in very thorough detail. Just you should be aware of the relevant accounting implication according to IS2, according to IS16, just basics. You don't need to go in so much detail. You can see past papers. Examiner don't go at double A level. They don't go at such detail. So it's not a just matter of going into detail in the accounting standards, but it's a more matter of or taking consideration of how to write audit risk under these heads. So this is more important. I'm hopeful that this question would be more clear now. Okay, so Ibrahim, your question was for which of the head examiner may ask to write procedures for specific assertions. He can ask Ibrahim any head, I would suggest. Recently, they have asked for receivables, they have asked for purchases, they have asked for payables. These heads are frequently asked, so beware of these heads. Do we need to study FR consolidation? No, Adil, you don't need to study financial reporting consolidation procedures because at this F8 level or double A level, consolidation procedures are not asked. They are part of triple A P7. So please write the heads as well that you mentioned. Okay, heads for Umar, heads for ISAs. I think you are asking for ISA's head. Okay, right. Procedures. So there they are. These are the heads. So the most important heads are from these is I would also write them down there. These are the heads from which you should memorize the procedures. Inventory is very important, very important. Many times examiner has examined inventory procedures. Then additions to assets are important. Then depreciation is very important. Intangible assets, very important. Provision, receivables, payables. So these are the most important heads in my opinion, but I would suggest that please follow this process at least that we just discussed. That process of understanding through assertions and related risk and related documents. At least these three things should be memorized for every head. What are the related documents, what are the risk, and what are the assertions? So these three things should be memorized for every head, and you should try to write starting with existence assertion. You can see for existence assertions which document will help you and what would be the actual one. Then rights and obligation, you should see which document should help you. Completeness, which document can help you to understand this. So by doing this again and again, you can understand and you can write your own procedures. Also, the risk, most importantly, the most common risks are related to valuation and accuracy. So here you can see there will be two or three risks. So write some procedures on these risks directly. So this is how you can write your own procedures. This is a way to write your own procedures, but the bookish knowledge is very important, memorization is very important. So these are the areas: whole inventory, assets, intangible assets, provision, receivable papers. These are the most important area in my opinion. But examiner can ask you to write any head. Okay, so when it comes to, Amna is asking, when it comes to drafting, at times referring to relevant documents becomes difficult. How to work on that? So yes, that's a good question, Amna. Referring to relevant documents is difficult. So this is a bit, this is a thing that can be handled through practice. Like, let's say we are talking about assets and we need to confirm its existence. So if you are not getting the right document in your mind, this means that you are weak in assertion, in my opinion. Because if you are aware of existence, that if an asset is recorded in asset register, it should be present physically. So this is existence. Now you can't name any document. You are going to the area or the location physically and you are going to inspect that car or plant physically. So you can't confirm existence. So normally the loans or other things existence is confirmed through bank statement. But in case of asset, you go and physically check, as in the case of inventory where physical count is done, or as in the case of asset where this asset is physically checked. Rights and obligations, if we talk about rights and obligation, if we have purchased assets, then there will be some purchase invoices, rights can be confirmed over there, and if there is a loan agreement can confirm us the name of our obligation. So loan agreement or purchase invoice is a relevant evidence for rights and completion obligation. As far as completeness is concerned, now it's a matter of thing that has been recorded. So all the things that actually occurred should have been recorded. So actually occurred means the payments made or payments received. So the payments made and payments received are, you can see, they can be traced down through bank statement. So bank statement is an important document with respect to completeness. As far as valuation and accuracy is concerned, valuation and accuracy has different documents. In case of IS-37, there is correspondence and minutes of the meetings. In case of IS-2, the post-year-end bank statement is important and minutes of the meetings are important. In case of IS-16, minutes of the meeting and purchase invoice, or in case of selling an asset, the carrying value for financial statements and the sales invoice is important. So you can see according to the accounting standard, the documents differ. And for classification and presentation, you don't need to refer to any document. So I am hopeful that this would be very much clear to you now. Yes, Adil, we are going for break. I think Amna, this thing would be clear to you. And explain valuation briefly. Valuation means, Umar, valuation is an assertion that an asset or liability should be valued according to the required standard. This is easy. For example, research cost should not be capitalized in the value of the development cost. So they should be dealt like a revenue expenditure. So this is the valuation. Like the inventory should be valued at lower of cost or NRV. So valuation is always described by the standard that how it should be initially valued and subsequently valued. So asset, when we have purchased an asset at the year end, we should depreciate it. So the value at which asset should be recognized is the carrying value, means cost minus depreciation. So this is the valuation level and it comes from the accounting standard. So that's it for before the break. Now we would take a break before going into next question and going to check the important points relevant to how to applicate the generic procedures in in the data. So we will discuss these things after some point. So So yes, we are on 15 minutes short break from now onward. So see you after 15 minutes. So hello everyone, we are back after 15 minutes short break. So let's resume our discussion. And what we were doing, yes. So we were having discussion regarding how to tackle procedure questions. Now let's move forward and go back to this question. Now you can see this paragraph R&D. Andromeda spends over 2 million annually on developing new product lines. This year it incurred expenditure on 5 projects, all of which are at different stages of development. Once they meet the recognition criteria under S30 intangible assets, Andromeda includes cost incurred within intangible assets. So once production commences, the intangible assets are amortized on a straight line basis over 5 years. Now, you are going to write all the generic procedures. You should be first of all, you should be having good knowledge of development cost generic procedures. For this, you must be aware of the project testing, project plan, bank statement and timesheets, purchase invoices. Breakdown should be obtained, and if you have acquired or purchased an license, then in that case, license agreement that is not required in this case, Andromeda. So from here to these procedures, these supporting documents are relevant now. These are the substantive procedures that will be applied. Once again, you will obtain a breakdown of capitalized cost, but what you will do, you will obtain a breakdown of those 5 development projects, as they have discussed that the breakup of 2 million for 5 projects. So these two words are crucial. These two words are very important. These two words will include in many procedures like obtain a breakdown of capitalized cost of 2 million, cost for arithmetical accuracy, and agree to the amount included in the fresh statement. So this is a clear procedure. For a sample of cost included in the breakdown, agree the amount, invoices and timesheets. Now this procedure will be written as it is. There is no change in this procedure because there is nothing to relate in that case. So this same to same procedure will be copy pasted. Now if we go to next procedure, inspect board minutes for any discussion related to intended sale or use of the asset. Now this is one of the criteria of the R&D development expenditure. So this is once again same. There will be no discussion, no improvisation. So generic procedure is enough. Discuss details of project with project manager and management to evaluate compliance with IS 38. So these all are basically copy paste. Inspect purchase documents, inspect project plan, inspect financial instruments, inspect specialist valuation report, inspect budgets and forecast. So you should have all these documents on your fingertips so that you can immediately get these procedures out of your mind and immediately type it for the exam. So, and recalculate amortization. Why this is important? Because in question you can see the examiner told us that the intangible assets are amortized on a straight line basis over 5 years. So what we will do when we are going to write this, recalculate the amortization charge to verify arithmetical accuracy. So we will include 5 years data. We will say recalculate the amortization charge according to straight line method for 5 years to verify arithmetical accuracy. So by doing this, we have taken care of the data. The generic procedure is now converted into a complete, you can see, let's write it, recalculate the amortization cost over a period of 5 years on straight line method to confirm the arithmetical accuracy. Now this is the procedure that you will write for the examiner. You can see the basics for this procedure are the generic procedures that you would have memorized. So if you are aware of the generic procedures, you can easily you can easily convert that generic procedure into a specific procedure. Now this was a generic procedure, and from this generic procedure we have made this specific procedure. Now this procedure, generic procedure, is converted according to the data that was provided by the exam. Now this is how you can convert. Now what if you have not memorized the generic procedures? Then it will be very difficult. You will think of the action verb in the exam, whether to recalculate or whether to go for inspection, or how you are going to use the document. You can see there are no documents involved, and the assertion is accuracy. Now if you are aware or you have partially memorized these procedures, you can write them, you can easily write them. So this is what I want to convince all of you, that don't lose your mind on the procedures. Don't go away and just behave like you will write the procedures under exam conditions. Not at all. This cannot happen. So if you start writing procedure now, you cannot write procedure by your own. But if you do a little bit effort on daily basis, just memorize only one head by understanding the evidences required. Assertions, you can see assertions, valuation, this is once again valuation, this one is for existence, once again existence, once again existence. Three procedures for existence, two procedures for valuations, this one is for presentation, this one for existence, rights and obligations, this one for valuation amortization. So this one is for valuation once again, this one is for accuracy and valuation, and once again the last one procedure is covering valuation assertion. So this is the way, dear students, if you want to get good marks or if you want to pass the paper, an average person should memorize them. As far as an intelligent student is concerned, he can write some procedures during exam conditions, he can generate it. But what he will do, that intelligent or smart student would have memorized these evidences, would have read these procedures many times, 5 times, 8 times. So he would have good idea about the procedures. He would be aware of 4 to 5 procedures in advance on R&D. So what he will do, he will improvise. But an average student or a good student, what he should do, he should generalize, he should memorize these generic procedures for at least 7 to 8 important heads, so that you can give answers to them. Also, OTs are important. In context to OTs, what examiner do? Examiner give you different OTs on different assertions. If you are not aware of the relevant procedures, you cannot get good marks. So this is important. Now, if we go back to that question which we were covering, this one. So this is how you are going to write the procedures. Once again, for intangible assets, up to 1 mark per well described procedure. So you can get maximum 4 marks, but well described procedure. So a well-described procedure is very important. You can use any of the procedures. You can if you can memorize even half of the procedures from that list, they would be enough to get 4 marks. But which half? Those half who are easy to memorize, or those half who are more relevant to the audit risk in that area. So I would suggest you should memorize those half who are relevant to the assertions and more relevant to the risk. So of course these ones. These are the half one that are most important, very important. So this is how you are going to get it. So this was the question Andromeda. Now let's move to another question which I wanted to discuss with you. That is the traffic lights question. Now this is the question traffic lights. This is one of the most tricky questions of the audit procedures in my opinion. Why? Because this is the question where you cannot use generic procedures. So this is a difficult question at AA level, where you can see this is a small local charity. This is a not-for-profit organization, and their operations are very different. They have a number of playrooms in several towns. The rooms are staffed by volunteers. Now there are no employees and operating in premises that have been donated to the charity. So they are operating through a premises that is donated to the charity. Now this is not like a case of a profit-oriented organization where company purchased these assets. So the assets are donated to the charity. There is no charge for attending the playroom. Anyone can come at any time, the time opening time, and they can play there. But pre-registered attendees may make a donation per visit. So there is a process of donation per visit. The vast majority of the play equipment, so there is an equipment, the equipment stored there has also been donated. So once again, play equipment has been donated, with some items being purchased by the charity after specific money raising appeals. So some of the equipment may be purchased by the charity, but they are purchased after fundraising appeals. So you can see that the data here is very different as compared to those previous questions. So this type of question is always difficult, and there is very scarce question bank of these type of questions. So kindly beware of these type of questions. Make full use of these type of questions. Now the data has suggested some income levels, whereas we are used to go for the revenue stream. Here there are some donations by the families, there are some donations from local businesses, there are some legacies, there are some local authority grants. All these four areas are the sources of the income for this small charity in the town. And what is happening here? The charity has limited controls. Of course, operational controls are not. They are dependent on volunteers. If you have read the book, you would be aware of the role of volunteers in local charities. And due to these volunteers and these uh, non or informal functions or operations of the organization, normally the control system of these charities are very weak and control risk is high. So this is important. Now this paragraph is very important. These lines are very important. Given that most assets have been donated to charity. So as far as assets are concerned, once again these assets are donated. TL has an accounting policy to value assets at value to charity, which equates to the fair value in accordance with IAS 16. So assets are depreciated over their useful life or as a property for 50 years and play equipment for 10 years. So donated assets are recorded in a donated asset register. So there are two types of assets now, donated assets and purchased assets. So donated assets are recorded in donated asset register, and purchased assets are recorded in a purchased asset register. So, so this is the data, and what we are going to do, we are asked to describe substantive procedures the auditor could perform to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence in relation to the valuation of property and play equipment. Also, describe the substantive procedure the auditor could perform to obtain sufficient and appropriate evidence in relation to legacies and donations. Now, dear students, I need you guys to focus on this. Requirement B and requirement C. These are the two requirements on which we are going to discuss. Requirement A is a generic requirement from ISA 520 analytical procedures. We are not going to talk on it. Now let's start with requirement B. Now this requirement B is asking us to write procedures on property and play equipment. Now property is an asset and play equipment is also an asset. So we can see what is the data here. Now these properties and these assets are of two types, donated ones and purchased ones. Donated ones and purchased ones. Also there is a data given that the assets are recorded according to fair value in accordance with IS 16. Also in the book paragraph we can see that there are some important information related to equipment has been written, that some of the equipment has been donated and some of the equipment has been purchased by the charity by raising some specific money appeals. So these, now we are going to write for the equipment and property procedures. Now, do you think that generic procedures will help us in writing these procedures? If you have memorized generic procedures, do you think that these procedures will help you? So I think not, but to some extent yes. To some extent yes. So let's see how. If we go to current assets, these are the current assets. Now there is a slight change. Now you can use same procedures but with slight change. This is very important to understand for all of you. There is nothing to worry about regarding the procedures under these scenarios. Yes, if you have not memorized these procedures, you have to worry now. You have a lot of things to worry if you have not memorized the procedures, but you can see this was a difficult question, and even these generic procedures cannot 100% sort out your problem, but these generic procedures can help you even these extreme different and difficult conditions. These generic procedures are very helpful. So how can we implicate? Now the evidence was non-current asset register and purchase invoice. So what do you think? Now are we going to use non-current asset register now? Yes, we are going to use asset register now, but now the word will not be non-current asset register. What we are going to use? We are going to use donated asset register and purchase asset register. For purchased assets, we are going to tally it with purchased asset register. And for donated assets, we are going to reconcile it with donated asset register. How? Let's see. You can see this is the procedure. Select a sample of assets from non-current asset register and physically inspect them. It verifies existence. Now, if you have memorized this procedure, then and only then you can improvise under exam conditions. Now, what you will do? you will say select a sample of assets from donated asset register and physically inspect them. Now this procedure have been successfully converted according to the needs of the examiner. So if you have not memorized this procedure, how can you? This is a very difficult process that you can by your own mind, by your own self, and you have zero audit experience. How can you write the procedure under exam condition? Yes, if you are an intelligent student and you have memorized the relevant risk and you are very well aware of the assertion and you have good grip on the documents and you have practiced to write your own procedures, yes, then you can write. So an average student cannot write a good procedure, well described procedure under exam condition by his own. What he should do, he should understand the methodology and concepts of the procedures, the generic procedures. He should memorize them, and then under exam condition, he should consider whether the examiner is asking generic procedures or examiner is asking for specific or customized procedures. So if he is asking customized procedure, what you will do? You will select some of the procedures from these procedures. And what you will do when you are writing, you can change some words like these words, like these words, like these words. So you are not going to use non-current asset register. You are going to use purchased asset register for purchased assets and donated asset register for donated assets. So that's all. Nothing to worry about. But yes, one thing to worry about, that is how to memorize these procedures. So if you tackle somehow this phenomena and this bad dream of you that how can I do that, you can do that. You have done it already. You have passed financial reporting paper, and in financial reporting paper you have memorized the accounting standards and accounting standard requirements. So what is expected from you guys? You should at least memorize 6 procedures of every head. If not every head, at least 8 to 10 most important accounting heads. So memorize at least 5 important procedures for 8 to 9 important heads. This is minimum. Now, what are you going to apply? Obtain a non-current asset register. You will write this procedure, but you will amend a little. But you will say obtain a donated asset register, and the rest of the procedure will be same. The copy paste. Then this one, yes, you will apply the same. Nothing change. Just from non-current asset register, you will write donated asset register. Select a sample of assets visible at the premises. Now this is a client's name, Morales. You would write traffic lights, premises, and inspect the asset register. Instead of writing asset register, you will write purchase asset register to ensure that they are included. The rest of the procedure will be same. Now if you have memorized these procedures, this question will become very easy for all of you. Then this question is not difficult for you. But if you have not memorized generic procedure, now this question will be a, a, a landmark, a bad dream, a question that you will never ask from God. So if you want to, what I would suggest that let's hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. I would repeat, let's hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. So, what first could be examined in the examination? This type of question, where the data is important. You need to have the data included in your procedures. So, how can you do it? You should be aware of the generic procedures, and then you are going to change it. Once again, inspect assets for conditions and usage to identify signs of impairment. Now this procedure can be included, but this is not as important, so you can skip that. For revalued assets, inspect. Now you are aware that this is an NGO and they are not going to revalue, so you can also skip that. Obtain a list of additions for a sample and agree the cost to supplier invoice. Yes, this is relevant, and this procedure is relevant to especially the purchased assets. The purchased assets, the assets that have been purchased, like play equipment or property that have been purchased. So it must be reconciled with the supplier invoice. Now, yes, you can do that. So this procedure can be copy pasted. Select a sample from the list of additions and review the description of the invoice to confirm that they relate to capital expenditure. Once again, once again, this procedure can be exactly copy pasted in this traffic light because there is no need to change anything. Data doesn't give you any slight change. Inspect the breakdown of repair and maintenance expenditure for the year 25 items. So you can skip that one also. For a sample of assets included in non-current asset register, inspect supplier invoice, title deed, and registration document issued there in the name of client. You can use this procedure for traffic lights. But the only difference you will take, or only slight difference you are change you are going to make, is instead of writing non-current asset register, instead of writing non-current asset register, you are going to write donated asset register or purchase asset register. So this is crucial. This is very important, and I think you guys are now going to understand why I was so much insisting and focusing on memorizing the procedures, because examiner is aware that you guys are weak in procedures. 80% or 70% of the students do not focus on procedures. It's a very sorrow thing, but it's very sad to hear. Every time we tell students that procedures are the reasons, and knowledge-based questions, these two areas. First, knowledge-based questions and procedures. These are the two major reasons why students get failed. But but once again, student will prepare for audit risk. Student will focus all his intentions towards audit risk, and he is going to ignore the procedures, and he will say to him, who is going to memorize these procedures? Who is going to memorize them? But keep this thing in mind, all of those students who will pass this session will memorize many of the procedures. That is why they will pass. They are going to read the book, whole book. You think who is going to read whole book? Yes, many of the students are reading whole book. Many of the students are memorizing these procedures. They are good at memorizing some things. They are writing these procedures again and again. And yes, what they are doing, they are also memorizing 30 to 40 important questions from the book. So these three things are important, crucial for the students, and students are doing that. So why are you behind? Think of it. Make a timetable, make important points, and take time. Give 3 hours daily for this important issue, and you can do that. All students can do that. You have enough time now. You have 25 days left. These 8 9 10 heads procedures can easily be memorized. Nothing to worry about. If you read again and again, and if you daily read these procedures, you will automatically memorize at least half of the procedures by just reading daily. So you can do that. And those students who study in groups, or those students who study in group, or they live in the hostel type areas where there are 2 or 3 or 4 students doing group study, so they can help each other. This is a very crucial moment. So Mr. A can ask Mr. B, please memorize these procedures and write down, and I will check your procedures. And Mr. B can tell Mr. A to write A6 procedures, and he will check Mr. A's procedures. So you can use your colleagues or your friends, you can use their help, their guidance. So you can verbally speak to them, you can listen to them, listen there, or you can ask them to just tell me the procedures for intangible assets. So this is how with group study you can do that. But if you are a single student and you are working at your home, then you can do it alone by thinking that you are going to write now the assets for intangible assets, then you will close the book and you will write straight away, and after writing you will tell your own written procedures with the procedures from book, and then you will criticize your own answer what procedures are wrong and where the procedures are not well described. So first of all, you are going to understand the action verbs from which they are starting, the evidence that are used, the document means, and the assertions. When you have gone through these three things, then what you are going to confirm, you are going to focus that whether the procedure you have written is a well described or not. You know that well described procedures are of utmost importance. So please be aware of these things. Now, let's go back to question. Now, as far as depreciation is concerned, you don't need to write all these procedures. So you can just apply this procedure. Recalculate the depreciation charge for a sample of assets to verify arithmetical accuracy. Now, can you change this generic procedure into a specific procedure for this question, traffic light? What we have discussed. Can you do that? This is a generic procedure. Recalculate the depreciation charge for a sample of assets to verify arithmetical accuracy. And this is the data. This is the data. Depreciation, useful life of this. Now this is the data and this is the generic procedure. So can you convert this generic procedure into a specific procedure? So kindly write the procedure in the question box and I will read it and I will tell whether you have written a correct procedure or not. I am repeating my question. This is the generic procedure and this is the data. Okay. So I have opened the question box and I'm waiting that if any one of you can write a procedure that is not generic, but the generic procedure converted into a specific procedure. So can you write? So I'll give you my opinion whether you have written correct or not. So I'm waiting. Please write a procedure. Oh no, Omar, you have written the procedure. I will announce that. Recalculate the depreciation charge for a sample of purchased assets to verify arithmetical accuracy. That procedure is almost same, Umar. The question data is not used. Kindly use question data. Where is question data? This is question data. This is the question data. Kindly include this data in this form, in this generic procedure. Recalculate. Ryan, your procedure is very much correct, but it is missing one element. Now, Rubaid has written a procedure. Very good, Rubaid. Very good, Rubaid. So, this is how you have written the procedure for property. Now, you can write a procedure for now play equipment as well, just like that. Very good. So, other students, anyone who just want to write and have my opinion on over your procedure? Now, this is a procedure that is written by Rubath, and this is recalculate the depreciation charge for the property over the useful life of 50 years to confirm arithmetical accuracy. Now, this is exactly what I was talking about, converting generic procedure into a specific procedure. So, this student Rubaid has successfully converted. I am repeating it. What he has said. Now, Ibrahim, you have written recalculate the depreciation for the play area on. No, this is not the relevant point. When you are focusing on depreciation calculation, it depends on the rate, it depends on the policy. So policy what they are following is 50 years for property and 10 years for play equipment. So you must confirm that by recalculating depreciation, that property is calculated over a period of 50 years and play equipment is calculated over a period of 10 years. So this is what you are going to confirm. As far as Ryan, your answer is concerned, Ryan, your answer is good, but you don't need to classify or differentiate purchased or donated assets because the bifurcation doesn't uh, help you out, because you can see here the property, whether it is donated or whether it is purchased, it is depreciated over 50 years. So whatever asset it is, just focus on 50 years area. Okay, Ryan, you just can include, you can write recalculate the depreciation charge over the property over the useful life of 50 years, and you can add like Harsha Rajesh has written, recalculate the depreciation charge over 50 years lifetime for property and 10 years lifetime for play equipment and check for arithmetical accuracy for both. Yes, Harsha Rajesh, you have written a perfect procedure. This is how you are going to write. Very good. So Harsha Rajesh has written a complete procedure, and Rubaid also wrote a good procedure, but that was only for property. So this is how we are going to write, and very good, well done. Many of the students are doing like that. So this is how, so I repeat how you are going to write. Recalculate the depreciation charge that was from generic point of view. Just to repeat my point, this is recalculate the depreciation charge. Okay, so you will write recalculate the depreciation charge. Now, recalculate the depreciation charge. This is same as the generic procedure. But what I am going to do, I am going to include now the data, that is property for 50 years and play equipment for 10 years. So recalculate the depreciation charge for 50 years in case of property and 10 years in case of equipment. So I have included from 50 to equipment. Now this is the data that I have picked from the question, but the data or the procedure written before and after this will be generic one. Once again, I will go back to generic for a sample of assets to verify arithmetical accuracy. On a sample basis to confirm arithmetical accuracy. Now, this is a complete procedure. This is a complete procedure. This is how you are going to write. So I am hopeful that you would be clear on it. This was initially a generic procedure, that one. But what we did, we included some points from data appropriately, reasonably. We improvised it. We used our own judgment where to use this data, but we used this data when writing our procedure. And what happened? It became like this. And this one is now a customized or specific procedure, or we can say a well-described procedure for which examiner is looking for. So that is what I recommend, that kindly please follow this style. Now, you cannot do that under exam condition without memorizing generic procedures. So if you have memorized these generic procedures, then your life will be very easy. Your life will be very easy under exam conditions. So it is your choice. It's your choice. Straight away, I would say. Either you struggle now or and be happy in the exam, or just be happy now and struggle in exam. Now, this is a simple equation. If you struggle now, you do effort for memorization of these generic procedures, you will be at ease under exam conditions. But if you become negligent now and you stay just there you are not going to get out of your comfort zone, and you are not going to struggle for your happiness and pass criteria and success. So you are at ease now, this means then you will struggle under exam. You cannot and you will not be able to write customized procedure if you are not aware of generic procedure. So this is my last argument, and that is why I wanted to justify you that this is the only way to pass the paper. Procedures are very important. 30 to 40 marks questions are from the procedure area. So that is very important. That is very important. The assertions are the favorite area in OTs. The procedures are once again favorite area of the of all the examiners. So you can see that if you are negligent in all these areas, and if you are resting in your bed and you are thinking that just I will go through the book and I'll read some chapters and some questions, I'll pass the paper, this is not going to end in a successful way or a happy story. So struggle now, do effort now, get your seat belt now, so that and work now, train yourself now. This is the time. So if you lose this time, if this time is wasted, then after 10 days you cannot memorize these procedures. The pressure will lose your muscles. So this is the time, these are the 10 days, you can easily memorize them and then repeat every day and every day till exam, and you can cover easily. So this is the way to successfully pass the paper of AA through focusing the procedures. So that's all for today. So let's move towards questioning answering session. If you have any question regarding this, we will discuss on it. So I am back to questioning area. Yes, now there is Ryan Hashmi. Okay, Umar, no problem. So Ryan is asking a very important question. And he is asking that, sir, please explain procedures for donations and legacy. Okay, now let's go back to this question. Now you have, now this is the most difficult part, and I hope for this session, March session, examiner will not uh, ask you to write these type of procedures. I hope, but if they do, how you are going to tackle it? Now you can see legacies and donations. For these two heads, there are no generic procedures that can help. Now this is a straightforward thing. Sometimes it can happen that for this like 6 and 2 means for these 8 marks, now generic procedures cannot help you. So what you will do, you will completely 100% improvise. Now this is the most difficult part at this level. And how you are going to tackle? Let's go to donations and legacies. Now this is the first donation. Donation by families for play sessions, which are placed in a locked donation tin at the time of play. Now the way to write procedures is in the data now. Now highlight the important points. These donations are placed in locked donations tin. Now this is an important point. Highlight it and write a procedure for this. So there are some donation tins locked at the premises. So what you will do, you will go there and you will see whether there are some donation tins and they are locked or not, and who has the keys. So yes, so how you are going to write? If you have memorized many generic procedures, you would be aware that you could have used many words like, if we go there, you can see physical inspection, select, recalculate, compare, perform a proof in total. So you are aware of many words: obtain a breakdown, inspect, inspect purchase documents. So your skill is groomed. If you have memorized generic procedures, you are not at a beginning level. You are on a professional level. So what you will do, you will think for a minute, as there are donation tin locked. Now you cannot inspect it, you cannot review it, you cannot compare it. What you can do, you can physically inspect it, you can visit it, you can observe it. So visit the play sessions at any day and see the locked donation tin to confirm whether they are properly locked or not. So this is first procedure. So now here the key to write good procedures is the data, only data. Now there are no assertions, there are no documents, which I told earlier. There is no risk. The only thing which will help you now is the data. Okay, so these donations are counted at the end of business on a Monday. So what you will do, visit on Monday and observe the process of counting at the end of business. Then noted in a cash book and banked in a Tuesday morning by a volunteer. So what you will do, tally the counted amount with the cash book amount to see whether that is accurately written or not. Then obtain bank statement and tally it with the cash book to confirm that same amount is banked or not, whether volunteer is working appropriately or he has hidden some of the amount. Okay, so you will move along with the data. The way the data is moving, you will move accordingly. Now donations for families, you have written the procedures from the data. Now let's move to donations by local business, which are sent by check to trustees at a registered office and paid directly by the bank transfer. Now this is the data. How you are going to get? You are going to inquire with the management regarding the protection of the checks by the local business. You can see some of the checks, for example, and to see whether they are cross check or not. Also, you can see the register where checks are noted down, and you can take bank statement to tally and total the amount of donations from local businesses. So these are the procedures. Now you have to make these procedures, but generic procedures will help you identify the relevant document, like paid directly by bank transfer. So this means this amount is transferred directly to your bank. So how can you confirm that amount? You can just obtain the bank statement and you can tally from them. So due to generic procedures, you will knew that what you are going to do, you are going to inspect the bank statement. The appropriate word for the bank statement is inspection. So what you are going to do, you are going to inspect the bank statement. As far as legacies are concerned, what are legacies? Legacies are the properties that are named on the name of, or they are given under the right of a charity to receive the benefits from that property. So they are usually paid direct to charities bank by the legal advisor. So legal advisor, now we are going, now as you have memorized the generic procedures, you should be aware that if there is a case of legal advisor, you should read correspondence from the legal advisor. So you can inspect correspondence of legal advisor and you see the legacies that have been banked that year. Handling legators estate. There will be a contract, there will be an agreement by legators estate. You can see or go through that contract, and if there is a charities bank, so you can see you would obtain a bank statement to confirm the legacies. So these three words, like charities bank, legal advisors, and legators estate, these three words will give you a clue that which document you are going to use. As far as local authority grants, which are the charity reapplies for annually. So charity reapplies annually. So see for the application, inspect the application annually made this year to confirm the approval. Also, if we have reapplied, there would be a letter received from that charity or local government. So if local government has accepted that request, then we can confirm it from the correspondence from that local charity. And if that is accepted, that is transferred directly in January. So we are going to take a bank statement from January and we are going to confirm whether this charity received tally with that amount or not. So this is how this was the last thing regarding the procedure. Now the procedure topic is complete from my end. What we have done today, we have discussed the need to memorize generic procedures. This is first step. Then this is the first step. Memorize these generic procedures. When you have done memorizing these procedures, then go to question banks, okay, and find out some questions like that, like Andromeda. Now, as the first step, this is a three-step approach. Step number one, memorize the procedures, generic procedures. Step number two, attempt questions like Andromeda, where generic procedures will help you to make specific or customized procedures like traffic lights in property and play equipment. You used generic procedures to make customized procedures. Then there are some questions where generic procedures are not going to help. Then there is you and there is data. So you are going to read the data As you can see, the data claims that control is dependent on volunteers, and volunteer is going to bank this donation. So means there is a control deficiency. You can also ask inquiry with management regarding the controls over volunteers. So how you are going to make this procedure? Only the data. Data will help you. Data will guide you. And how you can do that? You are aware that on normal heads, how generic procedures are casted. So same approach can be used when you are using customers. So this is a three-step stage. And if you apply this, and if you for coming 25 days, if you daily repeat the procedures, but please do not use rata system. First of all, understand that there are evidences. Understand that these are the assertions. Understand that what were the related risks at audit risk level and what are the documents. And then memorize with your concept. Then and only then you can get good marks. And yes, you will be able to impress your examiner and he will pass you for sure. Okay, so next question. Inspection of the tins to identify existence of the locked donation. Inspection, Rubaid, is done in context to a document. Now, tins are not a document. You are going to observe the tins. So, cost the total of the donations with the total in the bank to ensure accuracy and completeness. Okay, good. Try, Rubaid. Cost the total of the donations with the total in the bank to ensure. So the wording need to be a little changed. Instead of using cost the total donation, they are going to cost. They are going to cost the total. So on Monday evening, so visit there, observe it, and see how much total donations are worth. Then you can use this procedure. Uh, doesn't observing the process of counting the donation become a part of the test of control? Of course, Rubaid, you are correct. But sometimes what auditor can do? Now the charity is working for 24 by 7 for 365 days, and we have no evidence of counting how much amount was there when the counting ended. So for every Monday, on every Monday, a team of 2 or 3 persons counted the tin, and there is no other documentation as the data and as you would have discussed this thing. You have read through the book that the documentation is very weak in charities, so there is no documentation. Normally there is a bank statement. Normally there is, whenever in a private organization or a profit oriented organization, whenever there is a check received or cash received, there is a cash book maintained. But the control systems are weak, there may be lacking of segregation of duties. So what we can do, you are right, this is a weak procedure, but the only available procedure we have is observation. We don't have any Harry Potter machine which can take us to back time. So yes, what is available now is the test of control. All the procedures will be written in tabular form, right? Not in the paragraph form. Yes, Umar, procedures are written in bullets. Next question by Rubaid. We have left with only 2 to 3 minutes. So if there is a relevant question, please ask now. We are left with only 2 to 3 minutes. So please, if you have any question, ask now. I am going to answer it very soon. Also using the written representation letter as part of preparation get a marks even. Yes, Rubaid. According to ISA 580, written representation should be used when you are writing procedures for fraud, for laws and regulations, for estimates, for related party transactions, for going concern, and for substantive subsequent events. All these heads you are going to write written representation, and also the heads where there is an estimate like provision, you can use written representation. So written representation alone is not sufficient to provide evidence, but writing the test of control as part of substantive procedures get you marks. Rubaid, normally we are not going to write test of controls, but in case of charity where control systems are weak, we can apply test of controls. As you would have noticed in inventory section, we were writing substantive procedures, but during inventory count there are certain test of controls. So they are part of sort of substantive testing. They are test of controls, but they are included in substantive testing. But at the level of charity or review engagements, uh, where we are limited towards inquiries and observations and analytical procedures. What we do, we apply a lot of test of control, and we inquire a lot regarding the control system of the organization. So yes, test of controls are helpful when we don't have other options of the substantive procedures. Yes. Okay. So, dear students, our timing is running. We are now short of time. So, all the questions are answered now. So, I think we should end our session now for today. Tomorrow, we are going to discuss some OTs or some points related to audit report. We have a long agenda for tomorrow's session. Well, hopefully we will tackle that, inshallah. So what we are going to do, uh, we are going to discuss audit report, OTs, and I'm going to share a file of important, most wanted and most important 60 questions which you can memorize and you can get easy marks. So that's all for today, dear students. Stay blessed and have a good night. Allah Hafiz.